I'm doing a review of the story From Here and Hell and Back. It's a book. It's a actually a 5 to 6 part series, and we're going to continue another chapter in this book at some point. I want to tell you the review of this was powerful. It was emotional. I think for the last 3 days I cried, and I've been impacted by this story for at least the last couple years about how the criminal justice system actually works. And I was telling you guys right before I got up here from Winchester, Kentucky, this story had drew me back to this area, and I always wondered what it was about the criminally insane, the mental hospitals, the programs that are developed out of it, like um, the big needles that are used, the eugenics program, the really what we call today Third Reich. And it was such a powerful story that it happened here in Pennsylvania, and it's probably happened more than 1 or 2 times at different facilities. In fact, we're even going as far as saying that there's places where foster children were held up as prisoners. And we're talking about human trafficking, really, when it comes right down to it. I just want you to know that in this review, it gives me a time to give you a little bit of insight on this story. There's an interview clip, and it's also archived in the Chicago Museum, so that you know that this story has not only validity, but it really happened here in the 1940s and the 1950s up into the 1980s. And it still today is a awful experience about what I believe was an airman who came back from World War II and was imprisoned in a work camp here in Pennsylvania in Scranton. When we tell our elected leaders today, like, could something like that happen again? That without a question is not a far fetched question to ask, especially between now and primary day. What, how you treat your prisoners, and we're talking about mental hospitals where people have been 302'd, 201, and when we come back from Globe, Arizona to Pennsylvania, how many people left Pennsylvania over a story like this? Because I know a lot of people that do not want to live in Pennsylvania because of this story alone. And there are people who moved to Boston over this. And they don't want to live in programs where they're lying on police reports and 302ing and 201ing and hospitalizing people unfairly. That's not to say that somebody doesn't need medical care and help. It is the way they go about it. It is the false imprisonments. It's the false reports. It's all that. And there's going to be accountability for everyone who's done this. And when the criminal justice system catches up with the real criminals who falsely identified the story or made themselves out to be the victims, I'm going to tell you there's a lot that will be weighed out when we go into this primary season. There's a lot of people that didn't get a chance to go to the election or even to the polls, and they didn't commit crimes. There was no warrants. There were no citations, nothing. Yet you would have thought in the court of public opinion that they had committed a crime. Thank you guys for supporting the court of public opinion, because we're going to tell you, we want our justice system to work. We don't want to see people be inhumanely mistreated in these impoverished conditions. And believe me, there will be a lot to say about how you treat humanity. It is a human rights violation, if anything. And believe me, there's changes happening as we speak. In this review, though, I was left feeling emotional, a little distant from everything at first, because I thought, like, how can this humanely happen? But it's not far-fetched, not when I was subjected to these type of assaults myself. Almost 3 months ago, I was forced with a needle in my arm. And I really believe my story and stories like me are going to get more airtime. My sister would sit there and say things like, I hope you go back to the mental hospital. These are the things that my sister said. This is after comments my sister had made about me on Resurrection Sunday. And I'm telling you, when you make comments about your children and you make sexually abusive comments, that they will be held accountable for the stealing and thievery and all the theft that went on over the last 20, 30 years. In foster care system or not, no one has the right to assault somebody the way I was assaulted at my door, especially with a long needle. And I know that those people will be held accountable. There's a prison system awaiting for those people too. And there's a lot of felonies that would be easily charged with felonies. Felony assault. Like I was sitting here on Resurrection Sunday talking to my brother, and I became an assault victim. My sister and her boyfriend were looking to score drugs. They didn't want anything to do with me. They didn't want their kids to have anything to do with me. Yet they were scoring drugs, and they were basically trying to talk me into selling my medication. So when I tell you this opioid epidemic and human sex trafficking case in this review is very powerful and it's very personal. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this review.